The boy next door had a vicious tongue. Always mocking my weight for laughs. At our high school graduation dinner, someone joked that Corey and I were childhood sweethearts. He slammed his fork down, face twisting in disgust. Are you insane? Who'd like a whale like Wendy? I hang out with her out of pity. The table roared. Carter, our class president, frowned. You're blind, Corey. Wendy's bone structure is better than anyone here. If she lost the weight, you wouldn't be fit to tie her shoes. Silence flickered. Then laughter exploded again. Serious, Carter, her Corey scoffed, eyeing me mockingly. If she loses weight and looks half as good as Bella, I'll kneel and apologize. But we all know that'll never happen. More howls of laughter under the table. My fist clenched. 8 years of secret feelings shattered in that instant. That night I stood before my full-length mirror. 5'8", 200 pounds. I made 2 quiet decisions. 1, I would lose the weight. 2, I would not follow him to Colombia. Back at the restaurant, Bella, the reigning prom queen, had laughed the loudest. She deliberately dropped a greasy piece of pork belly onto my plate. Don't be sad, Wendy. Eat up. A full stomach makes you forget everything. Someone else immediately chimed in. Exactly. Our Wendy doesn't need a boyfriend. A plate of ribs is all she needs. The table exploded again. Corey leaned back in his chair, a lingering smirk playing on his lips as he scrolled through his phone. He acted completely detached. Like the humiliation he just orchestrated had nothing to do with him. Carter shot him a dark look but chose not to start a fight. Meanwhile, Bella leaned over and whispered something directly into Corey's ear. Corey let out a low, husky chuckle. It wasn't loud, but in the chaotic room, I heard it perfectly. I set my chopsticks down on the ceramic rest. I'm heading out. Bella instantly plastered on a mask of fake concern. Wendy, please don't be mad. We were honestly just joking around. I ignored her completely. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the exit. As I passed Corey's chair, he didn't even bother to look up. He was too busy texting Bella. I stopped right beside him. Corey, he finally lifted his head. His eyes laced with heavy impatience. What? I just looked at him. My mind flashed back to when we were 6 years old. He had just moved into the house next door and scraped his knee on the pavement. I was the one who crouched in the dirt, digging desperately through my tiny backpack, just to find my only band-aid for him. When he put it on, he gave me a brilliant toothy smile. I held on to that single smile for 8 years. Every single word you said today. My voice was eerily quiet. One day you are going to regret them. He raised an eyebrow, letting out a dismissive scoff. Me regret? I guarantee you I will never. I didn't stick around to hear the rest. I pushed the heavy restaurant doors open and walked out into the night. The street was suffocatingly quiet. My hands were shaking violently, but I refused to let a single tear fall. It wasn't that I didn't feel the pain. It was because it hurt so deeply that crying felt completely useless. My best friend, Gemma, chased after me, grabbing my wrist tightly. Wendy, I swear to God, I will go back in there right now and dump a drink on his Gemma. I cut her off, my voice raw and scraped hollow. Just walk with me. The amber street light stretched our shadows out across the pavement. We walked for a long time before I finally spoke again. He's right about one thing. I am 200 pounds, but he said I could never lose it. I am going to make him eat those words. Gemma bit her lip hard and didn't say a word. She just squeezed my hand tighter. When I finally got home, the house was completely dark. My parents were already asleep. I stood alone in the bathroom under the harsh fluorescent lights. I actually had a medium frame, but it was completely buried. My face was dangerously round, my jawline practically non-existent. But as I leaned closer to the glass, I saw the truth. My eye shape was striking. The bridge of my nose was naturally high, and there was a tiny, delicate beauty mark resting right beneath the outer corner of my eye. Carter's words echoed in my ears. If she ever lost the weight, you wouldn't even be fit to tie her shoelaces. Was it true? I didn't know. But tonight my mind was set. First, I was dropping the weight. My goal was 115 pounds. Second, I unlocked my phone and logged straight into the university admission portal. My cursor hovered over Columbia University's Fine Arts program. I stared at those glowing letters for a long time. I picked that major 3 years ago solely to stay close to Corey. I spent countless sleepless nights perfecting my portfolio, just to make sure we ended up in the same city enough. I hit delete in the search bar. I typed UCLA, distance 3,000 miles away. My thumb hovered over the confirm button. 1 second, 2 seconds. I pressed it. Status submitted. I tossed my phone onto the mattress, switched off the lamp and stared up at the dark ceiling. I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, an unfamiliar, Absolute peace washed over my chest. Wendy, starting tomorrow. You are living for yourself. The alarm dragged me out of bed at 5 in the morning. The sky outside was still pitch black. I laced up my running shoes, stepped out into the freezing air, and started jogging along the river trail. On the first day, I barely made it a mile before I felt like my lungs were collapsing. By the third day, I pushed it to 2 miles. My knees throbbed so badly I could barely walk up the stairs. On the 5th day, I finished 3 miles and immediately threw up in the bushes. But I never skipped a single morning. On the evening of the 6th day, I was stretching against the brick wall outside my apartment building when Corey walked up. He was returning from the basketball court, spinning a ball on his finger. He stopped and looked me up and down. Why are you dripping in sweat? I didn't answer. I just switched legs and kept stretching. He leaned casually against the wall, his tone dripping with his usual careless arrogance. People in the group chat are saying, "You're actually trying to run to lose weight." I stayed completely silent. He just kept talking, convinced he knew everything. If you're serious, just buy a gym membership. Jogging on the street won't do anything for a baseline like yours. Honestly, just forget it. He paused, then shifted the topic. Anyway, Columbia's orientation is September 3rd. Did you join the freshman group chat yet? My hands briefly stalled. He fully believed I was still going to Columbia. Everyone did. I stood up straight, keeping my face completely blank, and walked toward the lobby doors. He called out from behind me. "Hey, did you join or not? I can send you the invite link." The heavy glass door clicked shut, instantly cutting off his voice. As I walked up the stairs, the corners of my mouth curled up into a cold smile. Keep waiting, Corey. When September 3rd rolls around, you'll figure it out. On the 8th night, someone dropped a video into our high school group chat. It was a clip of me running along the river. Heavy, ragged breathing. A sweat-drenched t-shirt clinging to my back. Everything jiggling violently with every heavy step. Whoever filmed it intentionally zoomed in from the most unflattering angle possible. I am screaming, laughing. Wendy is actually trying to exercise. Corey's comment at dinner really did a number on her. Didn't Carter say she had potential? I'm using a magnifying glass and I still can't find a single cheekbone. Bella chimed in, "Keep it up, Wendy. Columbia's art department is packed with gorgeous girls. If you don't slim down before orientation, you're going to feel so insecure." Smiley face. Then Corey's name popped up. My heart skipped a tiny beat. He wrote, "Stop posting this childish crap." Someone immediately teased. Is Corey catching feelings? He replied instantly, "You guys have way too much free time. Let her do whatever she wants. What she does has absolutely nothing to do with me." Nothing to do with me, right? It never had anything to do with him. I secretly loved him for 8 years. And he said it had nothing to do with him. I bled over my sketchbooks for 3 years to get into his dream school. And he said it had nothing to do with him. Fine. From now on, I truly have nothing to do with you. I muted the group chat. I opened Gemma's messages. I'm going to my grandma's cabin in Montana until college starts. Keep it a secret. If anyone asks. You don't know anything, Gemma. My lips are sealed. Just promise me you'll come back alive. I smiled and sent an okay emoji. Then I opened my text thread with Corey. I scrolled through 3 years of pathetic one-sided messages. My mom made your favorite ribs. Wanna come over for dinner? It started raining. I brought an umbrella to the court for you. Good night. Every single message was left unread. Occasionally he would reply with a cold, "Yeah. Got it." Or "Stop bothering me." I took a deep breath. Delete contact block number. I didn't hesitate for a single second. The next morning I dragged my suitcase out to the sidewalk. I ran straight into Corey's mother checking her mailbox. "Wendy, honey. Where are you off to?" "I'm staying with my grandma for the summer. Mrs. Davis." "Oh. Well, when Corey comes over for dinner next week." "Mrs. Davis." I smiled politely. Corey is 18 now. I don't think he needs my mom cooking for him anymore. As I dragged my luggage toward the waiting taxi, a window slid open on the second floor of the house next door. I knew exactly whose bedroom that was. But I didn't look back, not even once. My grandma's cabin was buried deep in the mountains. Cell service was basically a myth and Wi-Fi simply did not exist. The moment I arrived, I turned my phone off and locked it in a drawer. Every single morning I woke up at 5 and ran the brutal mountain trails. In the afternoons, I swam laps in the freezing lake. By evening, I was chopping firewood and hauling soil from my grandma's garden. My diet was violently strict. Boiled chicken breast, steamed vegetables and small portions of complex carbs. Week 1, I dropped 8 pounds. Down to 192. Week 2. Another 7, down to 185. By week 3, the weight loss started slowing down. I forced myself to add an extra mile to my morning run. And started doing body weight strength training in the dirt. Week 4, 175. In exactly 1 month, I had lost 25 pounds. The mirror showed progress. But it wasn't earth-shattering yet. My face wasn't as bloated. But my jawline was still buried. My clothes hung loosely off my frame, making me look like a deflated balloon. I didn't let it break my focus. Keep going. Week 5, 168. Week 6, 160. I turned my phone on for the very first time. Dozens of texts flooded the screen. They were all from Gemma. Corey texted me. He asked where you went. I played dumb. He asked me again today. He even asked if you changed your number. Guess what he told the guys? He said she's just throwing a tantrum. Give it a few days and she'll come running back. I let out a harsh laugh. Throwing a tantrum? Corey? You really think you are the center of the universe? I kept scrolling. Gemma sent another update. He's getting super close with Bella today. Bella posted a picture of them getting smoothies after his game. The whole group chat is asking if they're officially dating. I stared at the message. I waited for the familiar twist of jealousy in my gut. Surprisingly, there was nothing. It didn't hurt. It genuinely did not hurt anymore. I powered down the phone and went back to training. Week 7. 150. Week 8, 142. The reflection in the mirror started changing violently. My jawline carved itself out sharp and defined. My cheekbone surfaced, making it look like my entire face had been sculpted from clay. My proportions finally made sense. My collarbones were visible. My legs went from stocky to long and lean. But it wasn't enough. I knew my absolute best was still hiding underneath. Keep going. Week 9. 135, I drove my grandma's rusty truck down to the local pharmacy to pick up her medication. When I handed the prescription to the young girl at the counter, she froze. She stared at my face for an uncomfortably long time. Are you an actress? You look exactly like that girl from my... Grandma quickly grabbed the bag and pulled me out the door. When we got back to the cabin, my grandma sat on the porch looking deeply troubled. Your mother was exactly like this, she muttered. Before middle school, she was just a chubby, harmless little thing. Then she lost the baby fat over a single summer. And the entire town went absolutely crazy. But you are much more dangerous than your mother. I laughed it off, thinking she was just being dramatic. Week 10, 128. I turned on my phone for the second time. A fresh text from Gemma. Corey told me to warn you that if you don't join the Columbia freshman group soon, you're going to miss room selections. His exact words, is she really still throwing a fit? Tell her I'm not going to babysit her on campus. So she better drop the attitude. Reading those words, I couldn't help but smile. He still fully believed I was heading to New York. He still thought I was going to follow him around like a lost puppy. Corey, what kind of fever dream are you living in? I typed a quick reply to Gemma. Don't tell a single soul I'm going to UCLA. Especially him. Let him figure it out the hard way. Gemma replied with a string of laughing emojis. Yes, ma'am. I cannot wait to see the look on his stupid face. Week 11, 1. Turn 20, my grandma officially banned me from going into town. Day before yesterday, when you were reading by the lake. 3 boys from the neighboring ranch sat in their truck and stared at you for 4 straight hours. Did you even notice? It's not that serious, Grandma. Go look in the damn mirror. I did, and then I fell completely silent. The girl staring back at me was a stranger. By the end of the 12th week, the mountain air in Montana had grown crisp, carrying the sharp scent of early autumn pine. The summer was bleeding away, and with it, the last remnants of the girl who had fled her hometown in a silent panic. I stood on the scale in my grandmother's bathroom. The red needle hovered, vibrated, and finally settled. 115 pounds. I stepped off and looked into the mirror. The transformation was no longer a work in progress, it was complete. The girl in the reflection had a sharp, elegant jawline that swept up to delicate, high cheekbones. My collarbones sat like twin ridges of porcelain beneath my collar. But it was my eyes that held the most striking change. Stripped of the heavy puffiness that had once hooded them, they appeared large, deep, and slightly upturned at the corners, framed by thick lashes. The tiny beauty mark beneath the outer corner of my right eye, once lost in a fold of skin, now looked like a deliberate, delicate brushstroke. You look like your grandfather's side of the family, my grandmother said from the doorway. She was holding a cup of black coffee, her eyes soft but analytical. They were artists and actors. People who didn't fit into small towns. You have that same look now, the kind that makes people stop and wonder what you're thinking. I'm just Wendy, Grandma, I said, though my voice sounded different even to myself. It was lighter, steadier. No, you aren't, she replied gently, setting the coffee down. You were Wendy. When you were carrying around everyone else's cruelty. Now, you're just yourself. Don't let them drag you back into their mud. I spent my final day in Montana packing my sketchbooks. My portfolio had been completely redesigned. Over the last 3 months, I hadn't just run and starved my old self away. I had poured every ounce of my anger, grief, and quiet determination into my charcoal drawings and oil canvases. The pieces were no longer safe, polite landscapes designed to please Corey's aesthetic. They were raw, striking, and slightly chaotic, exactly what UCLA's fine arts program had praised when they accepted my late transfer portfolio. My phone, sitting on the wooden desk, buzzed. It was Gemma. Gemma, are you ready? I booked my flight to LA to visit you the second week of September. I need to see this with my own eyes. Wendy, I'm ready. Flight's tomorrow morning. Don't say anything to anyone back home. Gemma, I wouldn't dream of it. By the way, Corey's mom asked my mom yesterday if you were still in Montana. Apparently, Corey tried to call your home phone. And your dad told him you weren't home. He's starting to sound annoyed. Wendy, let him be annoyed. I closed the phone and turned it off. I didn't feel the frantic rush of adrenaline I used to get whenever his name was mentioned. There was only a vast, cool empty space where my 8-year crush used to live. The next morning, I hugged my grandmother tight on the porch. She looked at me. A proud, knowing smile on her wrinkled face. Go show them what a whale looks like when she takes to the deep ocean, Wendy. September 3rd arrived with a sweltering heatwave in New York City. At Columbia University, the orientation lawn was crowded with eager freshmen, dressed in designer summer wear, holding maps and iced lattes. Corey Davis stood near the steps of the library, spinning his phone in his hand. He was wearing a dark blue polo that made his athletic frame look even broader. Next to him, Bella was chatting animatedly with a group of girls from their dorm, her blonde hair perfectly curled. Corey wasn't listening to them. His eyes kept scanning the crowd, flicking from one girl with dark hair to another, his brow furrowed. Corey, are you even listening? Bella pouted, wrapping her arm through his. I asked if we should get dinner at that Italian place near Central Park tonight. My dad got us a reservation. Yeah, sure. Whatever, Corey muttered, his eyes darting toward the registration tables again. Who are you looking for anyway? Bella asked, her voice dropping into a sharp, suspicious register. You've been acting weird all morning. Nothing. Just looking for someone from home, he said, pulling his arm back. Under the pretense of checking his watch. He stepped away from the group and dialed a number. The number you have dialed is not in service or has been temporarily disconnected. Corey swore under his breath. He had been getting that message for 2 months. Initially, he figured Wendy was just playing hard to get, throwing one of her usual quiet tantrums because he'd gone a little too far at the graduation dinner. She'd done it before, disappearing for a week, only to show up at his doorstep with a plate of fresh cookies or an offer to help him study. But this was different. It had been nearly 90 days. He opened WeChat and scrolled to her profile. The little red circle indicating a blocked contact wasn't there, but her profile picture was blank, her status empty. With a surge of irritation, he searched for Gemma's contact and typed a message. Corey, where the hell is Wendy? Orientation started today. The art department. Registration is almost over and her name isn't on the dorm roster for our building. Is she still hiding in Montana? 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, Gemma replied. Gemma, oh, didn't she tell you? She's not going to Columbia. Corey's thumb froze over the screen. He felt a sudden, unpleasant drop in his stomach. Corey, what do you mean she's not going? She spent 3 years working on her portfolio specifically for the Columbia program. We literally talked about living in the same neighborhood. Gemma, correction, you talked about what you wanted, and she followed you like a shadow. She changed her mind. She's at UCLA. Corey, UCLA? That's 3,000 miles away. Why would she go there? Gemma, because she wanted to get as far away from you as humanly possible. Have a great semester, Corey. Before Corey could type a reply, a red exclamation point appeared next to his message. Gemma had blocked him. Corey? Are you okay? Your face is completely white, Bella said, walking back over and peering at his screen. Corey quickly locked his phone, his chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. She went to UCLA, he whispered, more to himself than to Bella. Bella blinked, then a slow, smug smile spread across her lips. Wendy. To UCLA? Oh, please. She probably couldn't even handle the flight. She probably realized she didn't fit in here and ran away to hide. Honestly, Corey, it's a blessing. Now you don't have to worry about her embarrassing you on campus. Corey didn't answer. He looked down at his phone, his fingers trembling slightly. For the first time in his life, a strange, creeping coldness settled in his chest. Wendy had actually left. She had cut him out entirely. The campus of UCLA was a sun-drenched paradise of terracotta brick and towering palm trees. For me, it felt like a clean slate. I lived in a quiet suite on campus. My roommates were two sophomore theater majors who were too busy with rehearsals to care about my past. To them, I was just Wendy, the quiet, incredibly striking freshman art major who woke up at 5 a.m. to run and spent her afternoons lost in the painting studios. I quickly adapted to my new body. Running was no longer a punishing chore, it was a release. My movements felt light, effortless. When I walked across the Westwood plazas, I noticed people looking at me. It was a bizarre, disorienting experience. For 18 years, people had looked at me with pity, disgust, or active amusement. Now, their eyes lingered with curiosity, admiration, and interest. Hey, Wendy. I turned around near the sculpture garden. Walking toward me was a tall, broad-shouldered guy wearing a UCLA Club lacrosse t-shirt. He had sharp gray eyes and a relaxed, confident stride. Carter. I stopped, my heart doing a quick, nervous flutter. Carter had been our high school class president. He was the only one who hadn't laughed at me during that horrific graduation dinner. In fact, he had been the only one to defend me. Carter? I said, my voice hesitant. What are you doing here? Carter stopped a few feet away, squinting slightly under the bright California sun. He looked at me, his eyes traveling over my face, my hair, and finally landing on the small beauty mark beneath my eye. His jaw dropped slightly, his eyes widening in absolute shock. Wendy, he breathed, his voice rich with disbelief. Is that really you? It's me, I said, offering a small, self-conscious smile. Carter let out a low whistle, shaking his head as a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. I knew it. I literally told those idiots back home. I knew what was hiding under there. He stepped closer, his expression softening into something incredibly warm. You look spectacular, Wendy. Genuinely spectacular. Thank you, I said, feeling a warmth creep into my cheeks that had nothing to do with the sun. And thank you for what you said that night. I never got to thank you properly. I only said what was true, Carter replied, shrugged his shoulders easily. But honestly, I'm just glad to see you. I transferred here for the pre-law program. I couldn't stand the thought of staying in the East Coast bubble. He looked at my sketchpad. You're in the art program? Yeah. Fine arts. That's amazing. Look, I'm heading to the library right now, but we have to get coffee. Let me get your number. As I typed my number into his phone, I felt a profound sense of relief. Carter didn't look at me with the predatory gaze I had begun to notice from some of the guys on campus. He looked at me like an old friend who was simply happy to see me thrive. I'll text you tonight, Carter said, giving me a warm smile. And Wendy? I'm really glad you didn't go to Columbia. Me too, Carter. Me too. By October, the high school alumni network had begun to murmur. It started with a simple profile picture update. Gemma had practically forced me to do it. You've been hiding in those mountains like a fugitive, she'd argued. Over FaceTime. It's time to let them know the girl they mocked doesn't exist anymore. I chose a photo Carter had taken of me at a small cafe near Santa Monica Beach. I was wearing a simple white linen sundress, my hair falling in loose, natural waves over my shoulders. I wasn't looking at the camera, I was laughing at something Carter had said, my profile perfectly defined against the golden hour light, the sharp angle of my jaw and collarbone highlighted by the sun. Within 10 minutes of uploading it to my social media, my phone began to heat up. The high school group chat, which I had kept muted for months, was suddenly flooded with activity. I didn't open it, but Gemma sent me screenshots. Classmate 1, wait, who is that in Wendy's new profile picture? Is that a cousin? Or something? Classmate 2, no way. Look at the beauty mark under the eye. That's Wendy. Classmate 3, are you insane? That girl is easily a 10. Wendy was, well, you. No. Bella, it's clearly photoshopped. Or she got major surgery over the summer. Nobody changes that much in 3 months. It looks completely unnatural. Carter, it's not photoshopped. I see her on campus every day. She's at UCLA. She looks exactly like that, Bella. Actually, she looks better in person. The chat went dead silent for a long time after Carter's comment. Then came Corey. Corey, Carter, what do you mean you see her every day? Why are you guys hanging out? Carter didn't reply. But the seed had been planted. Later that evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but the area code was familiar. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Wendy. The voice was rougher than I remembered, lacking the smooth, effortless arrogance it usually carried. It was Corey. What do you want, Corey? I asked, my voice entirely flat, devoid of any emotion. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear the faint sound of city traffic in the background, New York. Is that really you? He asked, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. The photo. The group chat. Everyone is talking about it. If you're calling to talk about my weight, I'm going to hang up, I said. Calmly. No. Wait, don't, Corey said quickly, his voice rising in panic. I just wanted to know why you went to UCLA. You didn't tell anyone. You blocked my number. My mom said you wouldn't even come to dinner before you left. I told you why before I left, Corey. I told you that you would regret what you said. And I told you I was done. Wendy, we were joking, Corey said, though his voice sounded thin, lacking conviction. You know how the guys are. Bella was just being Bella. We didn't mean anything by it. You didn't have to run away to the other side of the country. I didn't run away, Corey. I moved on, I said. And I don't have anything else to say to you. Wait, Wendy. I hung up and blocked the new number. I stood by my dorm window, looking out over the glowing lights of Los Angeles. I waited for the tears, the heavy tightness in my chest that had defined my teenage years. But there was nothing. Just the cool, clean breeze of a California night. As November approached, the air in our hometown on the East Coast grew cold. Thanksgiving break was coming, and with it, the traditional reunion of the freshly minted college freshmen. Bella had spent weeks planning out a welcome home dinner. She had booked the private room at the very same high-end Chinese restaurant where we had our graduation dinner. She had posted about it daily on the group chat, making sure everyone knew that she and Corey would be attending together. Gemma, she's doing this on purpose. She wants to show off that she's still the queen bee and that Corey is her prize. Are we going? I looked at the text. I was sitting in the UCLA library with Carter, who was highlighting a law textbook. What do you think, Carter? I asked, showing him the message. Should we go? Carter looked up, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. Oh, we are absolutely going. I already booked my flight home. And honestly, Wendy, I want to see the look on Corey's face when he has to pay up. Pay up? I asked, confused. The bet, Carter said, his eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. At the graduation dinner. He said if you lost the weight and looked half as good as Bella, he'd kneel and apologize. I haven't forgotten. And I'm going to make sure he doesn't either. I felt a slight shiver of anticipation. For months, I had focused entirely on my own growth, my art, and my health. But a small, unresolved part of me, the 6-year-old girl who had dug through the dirt for a band-aid, demanded closure. Not out of anger, but out of a need to finally put the past to rest. All right, I said, typing back to Gemma. Let's go. The night of the dinner was freezing. The sky was a heavy, dark gray, spitting small flakes of early snow. Inside the restaurant, the private dining room was warm and loud. Bella sat at the center table, wearing a tight, designer red dress that showed off her figure. Corey sat next to her, looking sharp in a black sweater, though his expression was distant, his fingers tapping restlessly on the table. The room was filled with about 20 of our former classmates, drinking wine and sharing stories about their first semester at NYU, Columbia, and Boston University. So, is Carter actually coming? One of the boys asked, leaning over to Corey. He said he was bringing a guest. Probably some girl he met at UCLA, Bella scoffed, sipping her wine. You know how those California girls are, all fake tans and bleached hair. Nothing compared to actual style. Corey didn't say anything. He kept his eyes on the entrance of the private room. At exactly 8 p.m., the heavy wooden doors of the private dining room slid open. The chatter in the room died down slightly as Carter walked in, wearing a well-tailored gray coat. But he didn't walk in alone. Behind him stepped a girl. She wore a minimalist, ankle-length black silk dress that draped perfectly over a slender, elegant frame. Her dark hair was styled in a sleek, sophisticated low bun, exposing a long, graceful neck and a pair of perfectly defined collarbones. Her face was striking, pale, flawless skin, a high, elegant nose bridge, and large, almond-shaped eyes that swept over the room with a calm, effortless confidence. Beneath her right eye, a tiny beauty mark caught the light. Silence, absolute and suffocating, fell over the room. The forks that had been clinking against ceramic plates stopped. Several people literally froze with their glasses halfway to their mouths. Bella's smug smile vanished, her face turning a pale, sickly shade of green. Corey stood up so fast his chair screeched violently against the hardwood floor. He stared at me, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a sudden, overwhelming wave of recognition. "Wendy," someone whispered from the corner of the table. "Hey everyone," I said, my voice smooth, quiet, and entirely steady. "It's been a while." "My God," another classmate breathed. That's Wendy." Gemma, who had arrived earlier, stood up and walked over, a massive, triumphant grin on her face. "Hey, Wendy." "Carter. Glad you guys made it." Carter smiled, casually placing a hand on the small of my back, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by Corey, whose knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the table. "We wouldn't miss it," Carter said, his voice echoing in the silent room. He looked directly at Corey. "Especially since we have some unfinished business to attend to." Corey couldn't take his eyes off me. The girl standing before him was not the clumsy, eager-to-please neighbor he had spent years mocking. She was stunning. She possessed an air of quiet, untouchable elegance that made Bella, in her loud red dress, look incredibly cheap and ordinary. "Wendy," Corey stammered, stepping out from behind the table. You look different," I offered, a faint, polite smile playing on my lips. "I told you I was going to drop the weight, Corey. I don't break my promises." Bella finally found her voice, though it was shrill and desperate. "This is a joke. You must have had surgery." "There's no way." "No surgery, Bella," Carter cut her off, his tone cold and sharp. "Just hard work. The kind you wouldn't understand." He then turned his full attention back to Corey, stepping forward until he was standing right in front of him. "Corey, do you remember the bet you made in this very restaurant 3 months ago?" Corey's face flushed red, then went entirely pale. He swallowed hard, looking around the room. The classmates who had once howled with laughter at his jokes were now silent, their eyes darting between him, me, and Carter. I don't remember," Corey mumbled, trying to look away. "I do," Carter said, his voice ringing clear. "You said, and I quote, 'If she loses weight and looks half as good as Bella, I'll kneel and apologize.' Well, Corey, look at her. She doesn't look half as good as Bella. She makes Bella look completely invisible. So, are you a man of your word, or are you just a coward?" "Carter, stop it," Bella shrieked, standing up. "This is ridiculous." "Corey, don't listen to him." "Shut up, Bella," Corey snapped, his voice raw. The room gasped. Bella froze, her mouth hanging open in shock. Corey had never spoken to her like that. Corey walked slowly toward me, stopping just 2 feet away. I could see the desperate, chaotic emotion swirling in his eyes. He was looking at me the way he used to look at the trophies he won, with a mixture of intense greed, regret, and a sudden, desperate realization of what he had thrown away. "Wendy," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I didn't mean any of it. I was just trying to look cool in front of the guys. Please." He slowly began to bend his knees, his eyes locked onto mine, waiting for me to stop him. He believed that the 8 years of devotion I had carried would make me soft, that I would reach out, pull him up, and tell him it was okay. I watched him lower himself. I didn't move a muscle. I didn't smile, and I didn't frown. My face was a mask of absolute, cool indifference. Corey's knees hit the hard, cold floor of the restaurant. The silence in the room was deafening. The former prom king, the golden boy of our high school, was kneeling at the feet of the girl he had called a whale. "I'm sorry, Wendy," he said, his voice cracking. "I apologize." I looked down at him for a long, quiet moment. The memory of the 6-year-old boy with the scraped knee flashed in my mind one last time, and then, like a Photograph left in the sun, it faded into nothing. I accept your apology, Corey, I said, my voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. But it doesn't change anything. You said you would never regret your words. Now you do. That's enough for me. I turned to Carter and Gemma. I'm actually not very hungry. Let's go get some pizza. Sounds perfect, Carter smiled. I turned and walked toward the exit, my silk dress whispering softly against my ankles. As I passed Bella, she shrank back, her face twisted in a mixture of envy and humiliation. I reached the heavy wooden doors and pushed them open. Behind me, I heard Corey call my name, his voice filled with a desperate, pathetic panic, but I didn't look back. Not even once. The snow was falling thicker now, coating the streets of our hometown in a clean, quiet layer of white. Carter, Gemma, and I walked down the street, our breath fogging in the freezing air. Gemma was laughing hysterically, clutching Carter's arm. Did you see his face? Oh my God, I will cherish that memory until the day I die, she yelled, jumping up and down. He actually knelt. The great Corey Davis, on his knees. Carter laughed, then looked over at me, his gray eyes warm and protective. How do you feel, Wendy? I stopped under the amber glow of a street lamp. I looked down at my hands, which were perfectly steady. I looked back at the restaurant, which now seemed so small, so insignificant. I feel light, I said, and for the first time in 8 years, a genuine, radiant smile spread across my face. I feel completely light. I had lost the weight, but more importantly, I had lost the burden of carrying someone else's cruelty. The girl who had stood before the mirror at 200 pounds was gone, but the strength she had found in that dark bedroom remained. I looked up at the falling snow, then toward the highway that would eventually lead me back to the airport, back to Los Angeles, and back to a life that was entirely, beautifully my own.